Hi, this is Annie from HoopSisters, and in this video I have my instructions all set. We're going to show you how to stitch out from Jacobean Journey block C6D4E7F5. So we hope you will enjoy this video, and let's get started to see what supplies you're going to need. Alright, the supplies that you'll need for C6D4E7F5 are you will need some sort of scissors to be able to trim your fabric while in the hoop, and we show here a couple different sizes of our hoop scissors. You'll need a water-soluble thread, you'll need an embroidery bobbin thread, you'll need some brand of temporary spray adhesive to temporarily attach the backing fabric to the back of the block. You'll need a jump drive or something to be, or whatever media device to be able to transfer the embroidery design to your machine. You'll need 4 different threads, thread A, thread B, thread C, thread D, and you'll also need matching bobbins. And let me just show you the fabric that we're going to use for this block. I'm going to have the blue will be my fabric 1, the yellow will be my fabric 2, the pink is my fabric 3, and finally this pale green is my fabric 4. And the first thing that you're going to do for step 1 is you're going to put your battleizer in the hoop. We're going to be stitching out a 9-inch block, and you're going to have the machine just with a neutral thread in the needle and embroidery bobbin thread in the bobbin, have the machine stitch out an outline of the design. For step 2, you're going to place fabric 3 right side up over the placement line in the lower left hand corner. You're going to put water-soluble thread in the needle only, and the machine will sew a tack down stitch. On the outside of the block you're going to trim, leaving at least a ½ inch, and on the inside of the block you're going to trim a scant ¼ inch. For step 3, you're going to place fabric 4 right side to fabric 3 with the raw edges even, and with a neutral thread in the needle, you're going to sew the seam. For step 4, you're going to flip your fabric 4 right side up, and you're going to smooth out and finger press, and the machine will stitch a tack down stitch. After sewing the tack down stitch, you're going to trim a scant ¼ inch. For step 5, we're going to place fabric 3 right side to fabric 4 with the raw edges even, and we're going to sew the seam. For step 6, we're going to flip fabric 3 right side up, smooth out, finger press, and sew a tack down stitch. And now we're going to trim a scant ¼ inch. For step 7, we're going to place fabric 4 right side to fabric 3 with the raw edges even, and we're going to stitch the seam. For step 8, we're going to flip fabric 4 right side up and smooth out and finger press and sew the tack down stitch. And now we're going to trim a scant ¼ inch. For step 9, we're going to place fabric 3 right side to fabric 4 with the raw edges even, and we're going to sew the seam. For step 7, we're going to flip fabric 3 right side up, and smooth out, finger press, and sew the tack down stitch. Now we can trim a scant 1/4 inch. For step 11, we're going to place fabric 4 right side to fabric 3 with the raw edges even, and we're going to sew the seam. For step 12, you're going to flip fabric 4 right side up and smooth out and finger press and sew a tack down stitch. Now we can trim to a scant 1/4 inch. For step 13, you're going to place fabric 1 right side up over the placement stitch, and with water-soluble thread in the needle only, we're going to sew the tack down. On the outside of the block, leave at least a 1/2 inch, and on the inside of the block where fabric meets fabric, you're going to trim close as if for applique, and where the fabric meets the battleizer, you're going to trim a scant 1/4 inch like you see me doing now. And this area here is where we will trim as if for applique, so we're using the Hoop Scissors Mini. Here we can trim a scant 1/4 inch. For step 14, we're going to continue with the water-soluble thread, and we're going to place fabric 3 right side up over the placement stitch area, and we're going to sew the tack down stitch. On the outside of the block, trim leaving at least a 1/2 inch. On the area of the block inside where fabric meets fabric, trim close as if for machine applique. The next step is step 15, and we're going to place fabric 2 right side up over the placement stitch and sew the tack down stitch. And on the outside of the block, we're going to trim leaving at least a 1/2 inch of fabric. And where fabric meets fabric on the inside of the block, we're going to use our Hoop Scissors Mini to trim close as if for applique. For step 16, place thread D in the needle only and sew the decorative stitches. For step 17, we're going to place our back of our block, spray it with a little temporary spray adhesive, center it over the back of the block, and then using water-soluble thread, we're going to sew a basting stitch to keep it attached to the block. As with any Hoop Sisters project, once you have your backing fabric on the back, you're going to need to do a needle down and a needle up to bring your bobbin thread to the top. And by doing so, it makes a nice, neater, cleaning back. Another tip is to turn your automatic thread cutter off if your machine has that feature. And there's our back basted on. And for step 18, you're going to place thread A in the needle end in the bobbin, and you're going to sew the quilting digitized by Master Quilter Sharon Schomburg. For step 19, you're going to place thread B in the needle and the bobbin, and you're going to sew the quilting digitized by Sharon. The quilting will stitch out in these little pink areas and it'll be beautiful. For step 20, which is our last step, you're going to place thread D in the needle and the bobbin, and you're going to sew the quilting designed and digitized by Sharon Schomburg. And here is our completed C6D4E7F5 block. We hope you enjoy stitching this out.